The sun has left.
Your stories don't define you, but how you tell them will. I'm Sarah Elkins, your host and chief story maker at Elkins Consulting. I've been thinking a lot about presence, about how I want people to feel when they inhabit my space and when I inhabit theirs. And I've been continuing to think about the stories people tell about me after they've experienced that presence. And I really want to be intentional about it. And now, lately, I've been encouraging my clients, whether it's in a workshop or a one-to-one StrengthsFinder session, to think intentionally about the space they inhabit, who they welcome into it, who gravitates toward it, and why, and whether that fits your values and your goals for your legacy. Today, I have the great honor and joy to host my dear friend Renée Smith. We met on LinkedIn years and years ago, and she has attended a couple of the no longer virtual summits that I've put on over the years. And one thing's for sure, Renée's presence provides a sense of calm, a sense of connection, a sense of love. And you, listeners, are in for a treat because today you get to hear some of her stories. Renée, thank you so much for joining me.
Hi, Sarah. It's so good to be with you and with your listeners. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. Well, you know that I generally start my podcast episodes by inviting my guests to share something about themselves that most people might not know about them. And what I love about this question is that it demonstrates how complicated we are as human beings. And we have a tendency now, more than ever, to anchor people in one identity because of one or maybe two experiences we have with them. Reminds me of the generalizations people use when I came back from France and somebody said, "Oh, the French people are so rude." I was like, have you been to Newark, New Jersey? I mean, why would you say that about all French people? And I think it goes toward that same generalization of one individual based on one interaction. So what do you think? What can you share with us today?
So something that comes to mind that, I just don't have cause to talk about much, but that I'm a college dropout. And so I loved school, was a great student, and, did my thing. But then I went to college for a couple of years and then got distracted, got married, wandered off and left college behind after and didn't complete it. Which wasn't what anyone who knew me, from those earlier years would have thought I would have done. And I, followed my husband to Alaska and I became the homeschooling mom who ground her own grain and baked her own bread. And that was like, I had this whole other life. And then eventually had to find my way back to myself and finish college with 4 kids in tow as a single mom. But it's funny though that we have this we call it a legacy. We joke about it being sort of a heritage gift that my dad finished dental school, I think when he was 30. So he went, he kind of started that process, finished his degrees later, a little bit later in life. And they were the ones with the kids while everyone else was younger. And I even see that with my own kids now too. There's something about being late bloomers, but it's never too late. So
I love that. I never thought of it as heritage, but it totally makes sense because our younger son, after a couple of years of college at University of Montana, called me and he said, "Mom, I can't go back to school this spring. I need a gap year. I need some time." Because he went through school in 2020 was his first year. So his spring semester of his freshman year was early 2020. And he kept going even when they switched to online courses and did kind of a hybrid thing. But that January of I think it was 2022, he was like, "Mom, I just can't. I'm just exhausted. I'm going to take a gap year." And I said, "Great. Do what you need to do. Find whatever you need to find for a little while before you go back to school." And I said, "But just so we're clear, when I did it, we called it dropping out."
love that. Yeah. Yeah. I would say I took a gap 18 years or something like that, if I'm doing the math right.
And I think it's important for our young people to know that there is no linear path anymore. There was at one time when you and I were kids and just coming out of high school,
Right.
there were like three options, right? You get married and have kids, you go to college, or you get a job. And now people are leaving for a few years and coming back, or they're leaving and finding a completely different pathway because there are jobs that exist now that you never would have had income from. So,
Right.
oh, I love it. I had no idea that you were a dropout. That makes me so happy to hear.
Oh, that's great.
That's inspiring. So,
Well, I hope so, right? That because yeah, I hope it's inspiring to somebody who's listening who thinks that I did X or I missed this moment, and I've come to believe that like we never really missed it. We can choose any time.
Yes. I interviewed Sharon Rolfe, and she is 80, I think, and she's coaching older adults to find relevance, find their spark after retirement. And one of the things she said was that she went into machining when she was 50. She worked for Boeing as a machinist. She just started there and just worked her way through to figure out how to do it. And I thought, oh, maybe welding is my next adventure. It's something I've always been fascinated by. But yeah, I mean, it's never too late. If you are curious, go for it.
Exactly.
Oh, I love that. So when you think about that path and how unique it was and is at the time to go back, I know a lot of people just decided that was not going to be it. What was a moment? Let me back up a little bit. When I went back for my master's degree, we had two kids, fourth grader and sixth grader. And I remembered watching my mom study when I was a teenager. She said, I always wanted to be a nurse. She went back to school, graduated with a 4-year RN degree, summa cum laude, with high honors. I remember watching her study. So when I went back, I have these wonderful memories of sitting at our dining room table and doing homework with our boys. And I remember this moment of the boys talking about how we were all doing homework together.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, that's mom's legacy moving through me.
Yes.
Do you have a moment like that?
Oh, so yeah, I do. I mean, so I can remember when I was a little kid, and we were living in this little cabin. My sister, my sister and I, and my mom and dad. And I can remember sitting in front of the black and white television with this really long single earbud that extended, and it was plugged in so that we could watch TV and quietly eat our dinner while Dad was studying for dental school. And we were huddled around this little earbud, like listening to the show together and, quietly watching. And because he was studying, and we were probably eating Spam, like the real Spam, right? Because it was cheap, right? Spam and beans and that kind of
protein.
Thing. Yeah. Because we were poor. And so like I remember the doing without and their struggle, their dedication, his hard work, my mom's hard work, the whole, all of us really had a part in that season. And so I remember that. And then years later, I knew what it looked like to do that myself, to go without for a while, to, eat Spam and, huddle around the, the little earbud and whatever, like the equivalent of that, to go without for a while, for the long-term gain that was coming, the benefit that would come eventually. And I can, just like there are all kinds of moments with my own kids, mostly though, I have heard it from them since then where they've said, how much it meant to them. Mom, it meant so much for us to watch you do that, and how much they learned from watching me do that. Them, coming to graduation and watching especially my daughters watching me graduate, at whatever it was, 40, I guess, or 39, and then again from graduate school a few years later. So I had this very tangible sense of these like links to the past and then, to the present. But then now seeing them, do the same thing, with their own struggles, their own delays, and yet persisting through. So I'm trying to think if there's like a particular moment. Well, my kids used to. I think that where I see it, Sarah, is it's funny where they will. One time I was talking to my daughter, Faith, who's a midwife now and a birth educator. And she, I had the opportunity to be with her at her birth with two birth workers, who were attending her. And when I arrived and started interacting with them, they looked at her and said, "Oh, now I get where you get this." Because she was like raised in this environment of being facilitative and supporting conversation and dialogue and relationship building when you're going to do something significant together, and all of the things that we do as OD professionals. Like she was raised up in that, and so she sort of has ingested that, and now that is just part of how she operates as a midwife and as a birth educator.
Isn't that funny? I mean, I think about the times when my mom would talk to strangers and have these conversations because she was always a baby person. But when she went back to school, she became a baby nurse and was working in hospitals as an NRP nurse, resuscitating babies born not breathing, like intense job. But I remember as a teenager when she'd stopped to talk to these women with new babies, and I'd be so embarrassed. And then I remember when I started doing things like that and wondering if I was embarrassing my boys.
Mm-hmm. That's being us with our children, right? So recently I had the opportunity to go visit Faith, and she had just helped a mom deliver a couple days before. So I accompanied her to her home for the postpartum, a couple days later check. And, Faith did all of the usual check and, on her and so on. And we're visiting and everything. And then the woman, her husband's there and other kids are there. And she told her husband that she was hungry. And so he made her some porridge and got it all ready. And then she was holding the baby and needed to eat. And she looked at me and I said, "Well, I can take the baby." And then I said, "Check that. Let me just feed you." And so, which I had when Faith delivered her baby, when she delivered Minerva, every day for 2 weeks, I was there and I would get up in the morning and I would bring the breakfast. It was porridge to her room, and I would sit on the edge of the bed and feed her. And it was this really precious, nurturing time where we connected and she could still hold her baby and, do whatever she needed to do, but she was just being really tended. And she had told her client about this. And now here I was in her house, being mom, being grandma, and just sort of naturally slipped into that. And she looked at me and she said, "You're going to what?" And I said, "Well, I'll just feed you." And "Oh, I've heard about this." And so I,
you can continue to hold the baby unless you need a break.
Right.
And
right,
then
right.
take the baby. What do you want?
Yes, exactly. But in this case, she was just happy to just be really tended. And it was delightful. Her husband was in the kitchen and he looked around the corner and he saw me and he said to her, "You're being fed." And she said, "Yes, I'm being fed." And it was quite sweet. So
that is a
sometimes we just need to feed each other.
Form of nourishing, right? Yeah. You're nourishing somebody, body, mind, spirit.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, that just comes back to that whole idea of eating together, feeding people at your dining room table, inviting people to join you at the table, making a bigger table.
Right. Yeah, it's one of my most favorite things is to overcrowd our table.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah, our table pretty, comfortably seats 6, but we'll get 10 around it if we happily.
I love that. Yes. This leads right back into what I kind of brought up at the beginning of this when I was making the introduction was presence and how you want people to feel when they are inhabiting your space or when you're inhabiting theirs, which hopefully happens more often than it has been. I know that some people are still really, really uncomfortable with being in those social environments because it was a couple of years where people got really happy with cocooning.
Right.
And then this social anxiety, this social awkwardness has happened for a lot of people as a result of that cocooning. So I think it's even more important for those of us who understand this need, not just to be nurtured, but to nurture. I know more people are more comfortable giving than receiving. And to me, that's all about presence. So when you think about a specific example of the work you do, because you've already demonstrated how what your presence is in many ways. And I know that you are the same at work as you are at home. You bring your whole self wherever you go. So a recent experience with clients or with, something work related, income producing related, where you had the opportunity to have that presence, that nurturing presence. What was that like?
Yeah, I'm thinking about a team that I've been working with for probably 9 months now, who came to me because they needed a climate assessment. There had been some harm done by a leader, some dysfunction, history of dysfunction, lack of trust, lack of psychological safety, just some need to figure out what was going on and then create a plan for repair and moving forward. And so initially, presence looked like interviewing each of them, all 17, and creating an environment where they felt safe to trust me with whatever their truth was, and to hold that confidence and to carry that appropriately, and build that relationship. So I did that. Wrote the report, was able to say what needed to be said, but protect them in the ways that they needed to be protected. Then there was some delay in the next part, and so I actually had to go in and interview everyone again, and get an update on where they were at now, given some changes. And it was gratifying to see the continuation of those relationships and the continuation of the trust and the ways that people would reach out beyond that. And then eventually now, this month I've finally begun in January, began to start being with them, like going to teach, to facilitate, to coach, and to frankly just hang out with them and be present with them. And so that's, looked like attending meetings and doing all the things I just described, but it also ended up looking like they had an extra room in their space, and I'm turning it into a collaboration studio for them to use. So I've got, some work that I'm doing there, but I'm being present there on site with them. And what's beautiful is they just keep dropping by. I'll be in there, getting the space ready and creating the things that I need to create to take them through, make these assets available to help them with some practical, tangible steps. But that's like only about a third of the reason I'm there. Really, the reason I'm there is to be present and available. And like I say, they come by and want to ask a question or want to share a thought or want to have a close the door conversation for a few minutes or seek counsel. And so that, that process of building those trusting relationships through these, frankly, Zoom interviews, but then through being present, like in the handling of sensitivity, is I think an important piece of all of this. That they took the risk, trusted me, and then it was confirmed, yes, they could trust me because I handled this incredibly sensitive situation in a way that made them continue to feel safe and feel safer. So that now, we're making, I would say, that good progress can be made and support can be had, and the repair And the moving forward is beginning to happen based on that trust and that, being able to be present with them in a trusting way.
Tell me about this physical space that you're creating.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, the part of the work with them is retrospective, that it is asking for reflection on what happened and ownership and repair to the degree that they're able to do that. So there's that work. But part of the work is just looking at the here and now and looking forward. So what are the collaborations that you're doing now in group work in different ways? And what skills, what tools, what processes do you need to have to overcome some of the bumps and hurdles and, complaints, frankly, that you have? So accountability was a big complaint. Like, there are folks who just never follow through and do the thing they say they're going to do. And there's consistency in that story, but they don't have good systems and structures to help them make visible what the work is, and to help them guide that visibility in a positive and uplifting way, in a learning way, instead of in a punitive way. So, if every member of the team is assigned a thing to do and they've all said, okay, yep, we're going to all do that thing by this date, then it's just sort of, it's in the computer somewhere and in the notes somewhere, but there's no way to see, is that happening? And did somebody get theirs done really quick and, and well, and what could we learn from that? And is somebody struggling and, again, and can we talk about what they're struggling with so that maybe we can help and learn and help them figure out how to fulfill their commitment? So the space has, it will have, when I'll finish setting it up next week, but it has stations that describe the different steps in the process of defining the problem and coming to agreements as a team, and then planning the work, and then meeting to talk about the work and making visible what the actual work is. And then celebrating at the end. I know I'm forgetting a step in there, but so it has these stations that describe in the simplest of terms what the step is, and then provides a tool or two that they can use that are tangible. They are not electronic. They are, they are physical tools that they can create with the materials that will be in the space and put up on the walls. And
what, for instance? Walk me through one.
Yeah. So, So one of the tools is a how to write a good problem statement. And I will say that a bunch of this work comes from my lean and continuous improvement work back in the day, that when I was, in Washington state government, and we did a whole bunch of amazing lean continuous improvement work to make things better for Washingtonians. That was our effort. So it's drawing on that. There is a template for a problem statement. So how to write a good problem statement. A problem is a gap between where you are now and where you want to be. And so currently, blank is happening, when instead we want, A is happening, and instead we want B to happen by this time, so that. And, so it's kind of a Mad Libs, that tool would be a little Mad Lib, but how to structure a problem statement so that we know that we're all on the same page and we're trying to solve the same problem.
Yeah, that we agree that the problem exists and that it is something worth spending time and energy, resources to solve, and what the solution could be, what we want it to look like when the solution is implemented.
And what the time frame is around it, and it might include what good looks like. Yeah.
Right. How do we measure that we've completed this, or that we're at least making progress on it?
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. And so another tool to support that might be, so if we say, sometimes there are high level, right? The big problem, we want to, we need to complete our certification process, and it has all of these subsets, but that, high level, we want to complete the certification by some date, or get all of our, our documents ready, et cetera. But then beneath that could be, the problem of, we have this form we each need to complete this, elements of this form to submit, for one portion of the process by, and right now we have none done, and we want all of them done by this date with no errors. And so the supporting tool would look like everybody's name and, and a ticket that says, the part that they need to complete with a done column. I mean, it's kind of like a simple Kanban board, right? But when yours is done, you move it to done, and we can see who's not done yet. The key to all of this, of course, is to be able to talk about that status regularly, how it's flowing, how it's moving, what's standing in the way of others getting theirs done. Do they need help? Is there workload burden that needs to be shifted, that kind of thing? And can we do that without shaming and blaming? Can we just do that with support and with curiosity? And so, but you can't have that conversation if you can't see the status. Right.
Yes. This is reminding me of my one of my recent podcast episodes with a woman named Rachel Bonds, who talks about institutional change, and she works as a change management person, consultant, and she talked about ADKAR. Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course you have. Yeah. So ADKAR, for our listeners, if you didn't listen to that episode or a recent one where I monologued about a layering of tools. ADKAR is a framework for change management, and the letters are ADKAR, and it's awareness, as in you're aware that there's a problem that exists, your desire to change something, or an institutional desire. It can be approached as an individual or as a team or organization. K is for knowledge. Do you have the knowledge to make the change? Ability, of course, is do you have the ability to make the change? And then the last one is reinforcement, to ensure that the change is sticky. And one of the things we talked about is layering StrengthsFinder on that. So what I love about what you're saying is that it automatically adds that layer of what does this individual need to accomplish the goal? Whether it's like me, I need accountability. I need accountability partners to check in on me. Maybe sit and co-work with me. We don't have to be working together.
Right.
But working separately together in the same room helps keep me accountable. There are people in StrengthsFinder who are information collectors. And if they don't feel like they've collected enough information, they won't move forward on a project. So that's the knowledge phase. They get stuck in the knowledge phase. They just want to keep collecting information before they take a step. And sometimes if they also are very, they have very strong values about it, they may be concerned that not only do they have to take action, but they have to take the right action because it is so core to their values as a human being to do the right thing.
Right.
So I love that this takes all that and puts it in another structure to say, okay, now how do we ensure that we know what each person needs in order to get to that next step?
Yeah. That's beautifully put. And the other thing that I'm finding that it does is it helps check assumptions. One of the things that's become clear, like I kind of have the privilege and the burden too of like hearing from all of these folks, them talk about situations and about their understanding of each other and of like motivations. And it's amazing. We humans, we like jump to lots of conclusions. We jump to conclusions quickly. And we're trying to make sense of what we're seeing. And if we don't have either the habit or the comfort to go and just be curious and ask, hey, I'm wondering about why this, why did you do that? Or I noticed this happen. Can you help me understand? Barring aside that, if that doesn't happen, then we're going to make stuff up.
Right. We're going to fill in the blanks.
We fill in the blanks.
Neurologically, we don't like to not know.
Right. And whether or not, we used to say it's, MSU, make stuff up or make shit up. So
you can say that word on the
but the ability though to have a structured conversation in a time and a place where we're looking at each other, but we're also looking at this thing on the wall, right? And it helps to have a third point that is like, oh, it's this that we're inquiring about, that isn't quite so, so pointed. But we can check about, I think you might be like not taking action, and that just because you don't want to, but actually maybe you don't have what you need to take action. And, I'm hearing these assumptions play out. And so I'm excited to see this team, put these to use and get unstuck in some things. Because, what's true is they're all awesome people, right? They are all amazing people, down to the, 201, all of them are. And they're humans rubbing up against each other the way humans do. So sometimes we need structure to help us through those. And that's loving. Like, structure is loving, right? This can all, it's funny, this can all sound, maybe pretty tactical, right? And
opposite of woo-woo.
Yeah. No, I was thinking more like these tools and formulas, problem statements, and real tactical. But we humans need structure to help us through the bumps so that we can, get to the care for each other. And, as I would say, you're loving each other, which is uplifting and connecting,
Do you have a specific example where you saw one of those assumptions shift for two people? I just recently had a conversation with one of my clients within a group. And when he realized that this other client had the same talent, that's one of those really strong, sometimes judgy, sometimes very rigid black and white talents. When he realized at this group session that that's what rubbed him wrong the first time they met. And it was like this light bulb went on. And he said, now I can understand it. I still may not want to spend a lot of time with him, but now I understand what my reaction was, even though it's not really about me. And it was one of those moments that I just got the biggest smile on my face, and internally was like, yeah, my work here is done. Right? Like that whole, this is how we're going to move forward from our polarized, disconnected communities. This is how we're going to move forward, these conversations. So tell me about your experience like that.
So to set context, I was contacted several years ago by the superintendent's office of a major school district. And he invited me in to do relationship building. I think they called it team building between the superintendent's leadership team and the teachers union officials, the teachers union elected team. And he wanted to do that because they had a history of having troubles in contract negotiations and of doing harm, more to the point of doing harm happening between them through contract negotiations, which made those negotiations terribly painful and, left wounds for people. But it also made it really difficult to do good work together in the district and, get things done for students and communities. And so that was his vision. Is like, I just want to build relationships and hope that, that will help us do better this time around. So we spent a year, I think it was once a month, several hours together for a year, and just like having them get to know each other and building those relationships. And, there were I kind of pulled out all my tricks. Like we did all
kind of have to in that kind of controversial situation.
Yeah. It was, there was, it was everything from just like icebreaker kinds of things that got them talking to each other. It wasn't so much teaching as it was facilitating them to engage. And there was some problem solving and, that they, and some collaborating that they did on different things that came up. But mostly it was just like letting them be human to each other and giving them all these different diverse opportunities to be human beings. And, the upshot was that when it was time for contract negotiations, they went into those and And two people in particular had to, like, the rubber really met the road, these two people, one from each side, had to be in hard negotiations with each other. And so I guess that I want to, make clear, this wasn't about derailing negotiations. They still had to negotiate. All the things were still on the table. Both sides had their roles to play as would be appropriate to bargain and do all of that. But they didn't have to do it brutally. They could do it respectfully. And so in the end, there's two people, one from each side, who got together and they went at it. They struggled, they pulled, and they talked about this later, kind of with smiles on their faces, like, oh, it was so hard. But in the end, they came to a solution. They both respected the process. They respected each other. They, managed to agree. And came to came to a contract decision,
right?
Yeah.
Right.
They landed that, and they finished all that before the school year was done, and went into
which is unheard of.
Which was unheard of. No strike, no, and done, and with good feelings between them about the work that being able to work together, going in to actually implement that contract. It went so well that. Somebody from, I think it was from the teachers union side, told someone else in another school district about it. And my colleague and I went in and worked with a second district, a second school district and teachers union combo, and did the same thing the next year for this other group with similar stories. Their approach and their interests were slightly different. They were very intentional about designing how, not what was going to happen, but how they wanted to be together, and their presence with each other, like what structures and approaches they were going to put in place so that they could be respectful and move through this process and not hate it, because they all universally hated it.
Well, you dread that if every time you got together, everything was a big fight. Nobody wants to live in that space, even if conflict kind of gets you energized and gets your adrenaline going. And there are some people that just want to win. And so they kind of enjoy that. But I would say that's few and far between people who enjoy that battle.
Right.
Especially when you know that that you have the same ultimate goal, which is the health and well-being of the students in the community.
Exactly. And each of these, each of the people on the different bargaining teams say yes to this assignment to be in the bargain because they believe it's the right thing to do. They want to, do right by their communities and schools and by their constituents. But they do it out of love, right? For the students, even though they end up oftentimes, they had ended up getting criticized and, shot down by folks on the other side, but sometimes by their own constituents.
Sure,
it's just like a really, thankless kind of job. And so for them to design how they were going to go after that, to try to minimize that, and then to feel so good. They had a celebration for the second group after they were done. She had a shared celebration for what they'd achieved, and then went into the new year with a whole new way of being together and living into and doing the work of the contract and all the problem solving that comes up, throughout the year. So.
And there's nothing magic about it. And I think that that's what people misunderstand is what you're doing is creating an environment of safety and trust.
Right.
And that is hard. That is hard, but it's not magic.
No. It in some ways it's a decision, back to your, talking about the decision to love someone. It's a decision to act with love and care, with respect, trust, kindness, compassion, respect, inclusion,
curiosity,
yeah, appreciation. Like, doing those things are all apart from liking anybody. Those are things that we can choose to do for anyone we're with, even with perfect strangers, right? We act in, with versions of love to perfect strangers all the time. And demonstrate our uplifting connection, our care for people that we only have met for a moment, or we reach out help someone randomly that might need assistance, and then we're never going to see them again. But we choose to extend love and care. And so certainly, we can do that for people that we see a whole lot more often, the people that we work with, right?
Yeah. I'm going to come back to what I said with Edward Simberg and what I've said in the past over the years, even a podcast episode I wrote up and read as monologue years ago when I said, love is easy, but like is hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I can love a person even if I'm sitting next to somebody that I know is on the opposite side of the political fence to me. And right now that feels especially divisive. I can still love them, but that doesn't mean I'm going to like them.
And that doesn't mean that love is going to be soft and permissive either.
Right.
It's not.
Right.
It's not just, lenient, allowing. I mean, love has boundaries. Love says no. Love is courageous.
Mm-hmm.
Love points out truth.
I love that you just said that because it's absolutely true. It's not about letting them walk on you or being so diplomatic or pragmatic that they don't know where you stand.
Right.
And I think that's actually a really, really important part of this conversation, which is letting people know where you stand helps them see your complexity. And it also allows them to open their idea about others that they may lump together with you in a particular generalization. So I really appreciate that you said that. Absolutely.
Thank you. It reminds me, I've been thinking a lot lately about indifference. But back, gosh, I think it was in 2017 when I was really getting deeper into my work. I'd started my research on love and fear and was beginning to, explore this more and put some things out in the world. And a friend said to me, like, okay, you're saying that there's love or fear. And his question was like, could there be something else? Is there a third place? Right. And, I thought about that. Like, that's an interesting question. And he suggested indifference. Could there be, in implying that it's a neutral place? And I sat with that for not very long, but for a little bit, pondered that. Like,
Sure.
Okay, what is indifference? So what does indifference say? Indifference says, whatever, I don't care. And if we're not caring about where we go to dinner or what movie to watch, that okay, fine. That doesn't matter so much. But if we're saying whatever, I don't care to your pain or to the injustice that you're experiencing or to your struggle or to something difficult that you're, walking through in life, if I'm indifferent to that, then I'm saying you're not safe. I don't have your back. Whatever can just happen to you. And I'm not going to lift a hand, or I'm not seeing you, I'm not witnessing. And that is not safe. That is not neutral.
Right.
That is fear-based. That is squarely in the realm of fear. And so I came back to him and said, no, there's just two. It's just love or fear. We're going to stick with those two. I'll leave.
Because you're generating fear in the person around you. Absolutely.
I think Elie Wiesel, if I'm saying his name correctly, was famous for his statement about indifference, that there's it's not, this is not an imperfect paraphrase, but that it, the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference, right? The opposite of several different things isn't hate, it's indifference. And he was quite a champion as a human rights activist and Holocaust survivor, an incredible champion of battling indifference. And that was one of the, great harm, the source of great harm.
And here we are.
Here again. We are. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, this is a great place to wrap this up and bring it back to the beginning, which is presence. Are you creating a presence of love and care, or are you creating a presence of fear in yourself and others? Because if you are indifferent to someone else's struggling or pain or sorrow, then they don't feel safe. so they may feel fearful about you. And it always makes me wonder if you're generating that indifference from a place of fear
Mm,
because you don't want to be in that place of pain
mm,
and you're afraid of feeling their pain.
right. You know, I've gotten clear for recently about like what the actual process of love looks like.
Mm,
And with it begins with empathy, and that empathy has to begin with being willing to feel. You have to be open to feel anything, right? You can't have feelings be shut down and be empathetic. It's not possible. So it starts with being open to feel. And then with that openness to feeling, then we can look and observe and, notice people around us. And if we're open to feeling and we're noticing people around us, we're going to see joy, we're going to see excitement, we're going to see, happiness, and we're going to feel with people. We'll mirror their feelings in our neurophysiology. And we're going to notice pain, suffering, struggle, and we're going to feel with them in that too. And then we actually experience pain in our bodies when we allow ourselves to empathize and feel with someone. But it's not supposed to stop there. That's like only step one of the love process, right? Step two of the love process then is to take compassionate action based on the insight of that empathy. And compassionate action can sure look like a hug or a kind word or, an embrace or a meal or
a smile.
A smile.
Nice, warm, welcoming
Right.
smile.
But it can look like a lot of other things too, because not every situation needs a soft and tender response. Some situations need challenge, need a hand up, need an encouragement that you've got this. I mean, there's a myriad of things that compassionate action can be. And so we take whatever that compassionate action is, and then they receive it, right? They feel it, they receive it, and they know that they're safe, that they're accepted, that there's that connection and uplift that I talk about, and they can then continue on and likely continue that cycle back to you or to others, right?
That's what I was just going to say. The potential for that is this ripple effect.
Right.
If they felt that way, then they may choose to generate that same feeling for somebody else.
Yes, exactly. In all of that, there is the action of love in the beginning part of that, being open, the feeling with, the taking action. All of that is a choice, to enact love. And it's really popular to say, it's like kind of it's popular to say love is a verb, love is an action, but it's also a noun because the person on the receiving end is then experiencing the love. And that is the thing that they are receiving and that they experience in their body. And so it's incomplete to say that it's only action, that it's only a verb. It's got to be noun and verb. It has to be both parts, because we don't act with love and then not care that someone experiences love as the noun. We want them, that's why we do that, right? And so it is fully human to have both parts and to acknowledge both parts. And so, yes, I want to act with love, and I want you to experience that love, and I too want to experience that love. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's how we're meant to be. So I just sort of want to dismiss this notion that it's only action, because it needs to. It's only complete if it is both verb and noun.
Perfect. Renée, thank you so much for joining me on this podcast. It's been a pleasure, as always, to chat with you.
Thank you for having me. It's just a joy to be with you, Sarah.
Listeners, now it's your turn. I'm really curious to hear what was sticky for you in this conversation, whether you're thinking now about your presence, about how you demonstrate love and care for people, especially those that are strangers and those that you might disagree with. I know how hard it can be how challenging it is to feel love for people that have different perspectives than us right now, more than ever before. And I'm here to say that if you can allow that open moment where you express your own experience and they hear it, and that you are sharing this to connect with them and not to change their mind, this leaves the door open for them to carry that forward into other relationships. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Please message me or comment on wherever you see this podcast. Check out the show notes at elkinsconsulting.com to connect with Renée and learn more about her critical and wonderful work. Thanks for listening.
That's the time you must keep on trying. Smile, what's the use of crying? You'll find that life is still worthwhile if you just smile.